Hello and welcome to Mel Makes Stuff. My name is Melissa and I am finally back after a very long break. You may notice I'm in a new location. The last time I spoke to you, I was living in central Massachusetts, just outside of Worcester. And over the last year plus, my husband and I have been in the process of moving out to the west coast of Canada. So now we live in British Columbia. To make an extremely long story short, my husband is a dual citizen of the US and Canada. And his Canadian side of his family has lived on Vancouver Island for generations. And my family recently moved to the Seattle area. So for many reasons, one of which was to be closer to family, we decided it would be a good idea for us to move out here as well. So that is where I've been the last year, dealing with working full-time while coordinating this international move and dealing with all of my immigration paperwork so that all of that was in order. I basically had no brain space for any kind of complex knitting. I've been knitting the whole time, but mostly just vanilla socks, really not very interesting. I've made a couple other things here and there, but only recently, now that I'm here and have been here for a few months and I'm getting settled, I've gotten a lot of creative juices flowing. So now I have a lot of projects to show you, and I'm really excited to share everything with you. One thing to note, since I'm recording in a new space and I can tell we might be able to hear a lot of ship noises, we moved to a small island called Gabriola Island. It's an amazing place. I couldn't be happier or more grateful to be living here. It's a small island between mainland BC and Vancouver Island. And so we're quite close to the water. We don't have a water view or anything, but you can hear a lot of ship noises and seaplanes, and sometimes we hear seals barking and that kind of thing. So you might get to hear some of that on this podcast, but probably just ship noises and horns. I want to say thank you to anyone who reached out during this time I've been gone. I'm very sorry I didn't get back to you. I have no good excuse for that other than that I've been completely overwhelmed until the last couple months. And just know that I'm very grateful that you reached out to make sure that I was doing okay and wondering if I'll be back. I always plan to come back. It has just taken me a little bit of time to get back on the horse. And now here I am. So let's get on with it. Just briefly before we look at the new projects, I am wearing an old sweater that I did a video about some years ago now. This is a mashup of two Marie Wallin patterns, her Wild Rose and her Chestnut patterns. And so I will link the video about the making of this sweater down below in case you're interested. The first almost finished garment I have to share with you is the Pohjola pullover by Sari Nordlund. I say almost finished because the sweater is totally done, ends woven in, it's just not blocked, and I'm trying to decide whether I want to go back and add some length. So maybe you can help me figure out what I actually want to do here. So just to show it to you, here it is. The original sweater calls for 3 colors. I ended up using 4, mostly because I could tell I was going to run out of the middle color, the medium blue color here. So my white color and the dark blue of the body is Purl Soho linen quill. So the blue is Stillwater blue. It's like a nice navy. And the white is the pale oats colorway. And then you can maybe see here where I had to switch because I had run out of this original color, this medium blue. So this is a Marie Wallin British Breeds color. And this is a Jamiesons Smith 2-ply jumper weight. So I will look up which colorways those were and put them down below. You can see I had an inkling that I was not going to have enough of that mid-tone blue. And so I started sort of switching at the top. I didn't, just make it to this point and switch over to that darker blue. I used it here and there. And I'm actually quite happy with how that turned out. I think it looks intentional, although by the time I got here to the middle of this motif, I was out of this yarn. So there was nothing more I could do about that anyway. The pattern gives you the option to do color work on the sleeves, which as you can see, I did not do. And it also gives the option of a cropped versus normal length body. So I did something in between. The cropped version given in the pattern is quite short. I'm not sure, if you had any sort of bust at all, I feel like it might be hanging out the bottom. It seemed, I had put it on at that suggested crop length and thought, no, I need a little bit more than that. And my intention is to wear this over a dress, but I've discovered that I don't really have a dress that this looks good over, so I'm debating whether I want to undo this bottom ribbing and just make it a little bit longer. I did do a sewn bind off at the bottom, so I wouldn't unpick that. I would probably just cut it, to be honest, because it's way too much of a pain to unravel something like that. And I have plenty of this main color yarn still, so I'm not worried about running out of yarn. I could easily add a couple inches and it would be fine. I knit the size 3, which gives a finished size of 100 centimeters. My actual bust measurement is around an 89, so basically 10 centimeters of positive ease. I did end up making 2 modifications. So the first one was the neck. If you look at the original pattern, you'll notice that it's got quite a high neck that sort of stands up. There's something about it that looks a little strange to me. I can't quite pinpoint what it is, but the pattern has you start by knitting that double folded neckline and then starting the color work. And I didn't want to do that and then get to the end and be unhappy with the neckline and have to figure it out then. So what I did was I did a provisional cast on and right here below the ribbing, and then I just knit the yoke and I came back to deal with the neck later. What I decided to do is not a double folded neckline. I just knit about an inch of rib and then I did a sewn bind off. So I think this lays a little bit nicer. I'll try this on in a second for you. Again, it's not blacked, so it's, you know, not quite what it will look like when it's finished, but I think I like that neckline. The other modification I did was a change to how the short rows are done underneath the yoke. What the pattern has you do is once you get to the bottom of the colorwork yoke, you separate the sleeves and the back, and then you just knit some short rows on the back stitches. What I like to do for a colorwork yoke is bring the short rows around actually onto the front of the garment. So I basically make a long tapered wedge that goes all the way around the body, over the arm and onto the bust, and ends up almost looking like a bust dart. I mean, you can't see it because I hide all of the turns, you know, the short row turns, but basically it gives a little bit more of a relaxed fit. It was a technique that I picked up from Ysolda Teague's Threipmuir sweater, which in my opinion is one of the best yoke patterns ever. I love that sweater, and those short rows are a major part of the reason why. So let me try this on for you. Okay, so here we go. You can see it's not blocked. I imagine I'll get maybe an inch. I don't expect that this will stretch out too much. You can see the sleeves are sort of a nice length at this point. If they got slightly longer, I would not be mad about that. And, oh, actually now that I have it on, I kind of like this length. I think once it's blocked, it'll be fine. These jeans that I'm wearing are, I would say, a normal rise. Like, here's my belly button. I'm not wearing particularly high rise, and yet still I think this is maybe okay. A lot of my pants are high rise, so this sweater will look totally fine with those as well. Yeah, I'm glad I tried this on for you because now I actually like it. I think I'm just going to go ahead and block it. But see if you can tell that these short rows, so you can see when you put a yoke on your body, it sort of sits higher in the back and lower in the front, and especially on me because I have a small bust. And so basically my short rows created about this much fabric and I usually like to bring them to about the apex points is where my short row series will end. So that is basically the shape of the fabric, and it goes like that around the back and then comes like this again onto the front. You can just about see where they end, just about here. So that is what that short row technique does. Again, I learned that from the Threipmuir pattern. I learned a lot from that pattern. I first knit one of those many years ago. I've knit a number of them, and I use techniques from it quite a bit. You can see the neckline is not too high. If I had knit as recommended, it would be double thickness and slightly higher than this. So I think this is just fine. I'm not sure I would want it any higher than this. It's already quite a close crew neck, and I'm happy with that. So that is my Pohjola. I am actually quite happy with this. I'm excited to go block it now, although things take forever to dry here. It's very wet. I think today is the first day it hasn't been raining in some weeks. It's the Pacific Northwest, you know, what are you gonna do? But I've been putting off blocking things because things take forever to dry. So I will go ahead and block this and maybe put a fan on or something. I have 2 more finished projects that are not knitting, but I'm gonna show them quickly while we're talking about finished stuff. The first one is the boxed blocks quilt, which you might remember from my episodes before. It's my first entirely handmade quilt. I pieced and hand quilted, and it is from this book, Quilt Making by Hand by Jinny Beyer, which is excellent and a very inspiring book. So here is the original pattern, and you can see, you may remember, it's a play on the traditional tumbling blocks pattern, but because of where the dark and light and medium colors of each block are arranged, it also creates this star pattern. So it's sort of an optical illusion. How do I show this? Here's the finished quilt. It's really sort of a personal quilt. Let's see, my wingspan's about 5'2", so 60, I would say it's 62 to 64 inches wide and slightly more than that long, maybe 70-ish long. So I keep it on a chair right here and use it as my couch chair blanket. The animals love it, so it's gotten a lot of use already. I hand quilted this whole thing while I was back in Massachusetts, so I used a quilt stand for it. Is that what it's called? A quilt stand? It made it very convenient to quilt it, actually. I haven't liked using a hoop or anything like that in the past, but I may switch permanently to using a stand now for something like this anyway, where there are lots of straight lines. Made it very easy. So you can see the type of colors I used. I had an excellent quilt shop near me in Massachusetts that sold scrap by weight. So I could buy, like I could go and pick out, that's where I got all these colors. I went and picked all of them out over a period of probably a couple of years, honestly. I would keep visiting and getting new colors and coming home and incorporating them. This quilt took at least 3 years, I would say. I did not work on it consistently. Like there would be months where I wouldn't work on it, and then I would sort of do a burst of sewing the blocks. It was really piecing the blocks that took the longest. And the batting that I used was a wool batting. So here you can see what some of my hand stitching looks like. I was really trying to practice my hand stitching, and you can tell from the beginning to the end of the quilt, this must be the end, because it definitely got a lot more smaller stitches and more consistent towards the end. I did machine sew the binding to the quilt sandwich, but I hand tacked it in the back, as you can see here. And I love this thing. And my father-in-law actually loves it too, so much. I considered giving it to him, but then I was like, you know, I'll make him his own. I probably won't hand piece it, but I will hand quilt it. So I started accumulating some colors for him. I'm gonna do his in more blues, I think. So that will be hopefully a shorter term project. I'm more motivated to get it done for him because he really enjoyed this quilt so much that he'll really love it if I make him one as well. The one thing that I did get into last year is weaving. I really dove into weaving, and so I made a number of things last year, but the one that I most recently finished is a set of placemats and napkins. The placemats are a version of a pattern from this book, which is all about rep weave, which is this style of weave. If you're not a weaver, I'm sure you will have seen this in hard-wearing things for the house, rugs, placemats, runners, that type of thing. This is the rug pattern, which only uses 3 colors. And Here is a shot of my finished placemats, which used way more colors. I wanted to make more gradations in the color of the warp, so that is what I did. And then I also wove a coordinating set of napkins using some of the same types of colors, and those are the Floral Bouquet napkins from the summer 2025 issue of Handwoven magazine. I did change the pattern with the help of my teacher, so if you're looking up the pattern, it will look slightly different, but the vibe is still the same. I just made my napkins a little bit bigger. Okay, back to knitting. If you've been around for quite a while and you have a good memory, you may remember my swatch for this sweater. This is the Hazy cardigan by Helga Isier. It's from this book called Amimono Stitches by Helga Isier. And here is the pattern. So you can see it's sort of a grandpa style cardigan, are we still calling them that? With the sort of relaxed fit, buttons in the front. And the cardigan is knit with holding a linen. I think original yarn, I mean, these are all Isier yarns in the original. I think it's a linen blend held together with a mohair silk for the main sweater. And then you do this embroidery to create this plaid here. So let me show you my swatch and then I'll show you my actual sweater. So here's my swatch. I have shown this before. Probably 2023 or earlier. And so it's creating a really funky color. I am using a gold linen yarn held together with a pink mohair. I'll show you those in a sec. And then for the embroidery, this is it's a Jamieson Smith 2-ply jumper weight for the pink. And then this mint green is like a leftover Hue Loco sock yarn that I've had in my stash for a long time. Here are the yarns I'm holding together to create the fabric for the body of the sweater. So this one is Silk City Fibers. This is actually a weaving yarn, which I recognize now that I've been weaving. It's 100% linen and the colorway is Topaz 228. So that is that. I ordered this from Lion Brand, like directly from Lion Brand a number of years ago, so I don't know if this still exists. I've had it in my stash for a long time. And then this one is knitting for Olive Soft Silk Mohair in the Dusty Rose colorway, which is sort of it's a dusty rose. It's like a purplish, more of a purplish rose color. And then here are my two contrast colors for the embroidery. So that is the palette. Roscoe. Hey, buddy. And here is the sweater. So as you can see, it's knit flat from the bottom up, and just really want to make sure this doesn't fall off the needle. I'll move that camera back a bit. So you can see I am just about at the point where I'm going to separate sleeves. And the way that the embroidery is done is you create these vertical slip stitch lines as you're knitting, and then you go back and do the embroidery using those as a guide. And then for the horizontal crosshatch lines, I think you just have to count rows. So we'll see how that goes when I get there. I'm sure it will be fine. I'm sure some people might think that it's a weird thing to do, to hold mohair together with linen. The reason that I think it's cool is because it creates a very interesting feel of the fabric. It's like this sort of hard, crunchy interior and then this fuzz on top. It's very interesting, and it sort of feels like holding a baby animal in your hand, like a little rabbit or like a little bird or something. Feels like that. It's an interesting sensory experience, you know? It's one of those things where, why not? You know, I'm not gonna wear this for a hot weather occasion. You know, it's a cardigan, it's a fuzzy cardigan. I'm always gonna be wearing it over a turtleneck or something underneath it. So I don't need it to be, you know, I'm not pretending like it's gonna be a summer garment with the linen, you know what I mean? It just sort of creates a cool texture, and I enjoy that sort of thing. I have not chosen buttons for this yet, and I think that is probably going to be a real challenge. I'm not too familiar with fabric stores in this area yet, but I haven't seen too many that have a promising button section, so I might be stuck ordering online. And this will be a weird fabric to try to match or find buttons that will go with it. I have a little bit of time to figure that out, but that is something I'll have to do pretty soon. I'm making a project diary video about this sweater, so more details will be forthcoming on this project, but I finally started it. I know some people were excited about this one because it was sort of a weird swatch, you know, it was a cool idea. And actually the whole book is like this. The premise of the book is that she was trying to incorporate different stitching or embroidery or duplicate stitching techniques on a lot of the projects to add interest. And I like a lot of things in there actually. There's another one that I want to make. This one called Cloudy. You can maybe see there is some, again, like duplicate stitch embroidery that happens after you've knit the original sweater. I'm assuming that's how this is done here. So I would like to make that, and I'm fairly sure I've got some yarn in my stash that would work for it. Like most Issa patterns, there are sort of bare bones instructions and lots of like at the same time wording. So my project diary video will show how I deal with that type of thing. And yeah, I'm looking forward to that coming out as well. The second sweater project that I have to share with you is actually a project that's going to be for my husband. It is the Olympia pattern by Cheryl Toy. I had made Frank a shawl collar sweater a couple years ago, made it out of Barocco Ultra Alpaca, and he wears the hell out of that thing. Like he wears it every day. Every morning he gets up and he puts this cardigan on. And so now that we're living in this sort of cold and wet climate, I thought, you know, do you want another sweater, another cardigan, anything? Because he doesn't really ask for things, but if I offer, he'll take me up on it sometimes. And he said, yeah, I've actually been thinking that I want a double-breasted cardigan. And I was like, a double-breasted cardigan? Like I'm just picturing all the patterns from my childhood, like patterns from the 80s and 90s that are really not that good looking. And I was like, I don't want to make that. Like I don't want to make something that's not good looking, you know? And because I'm gonna have to see him in it all the time, you know, so I want it to look nice. So I started looking around on Ravelry and I found this beautiful unisex pattern by Cheryl Toy. And I showed it to Frank and I said, hey, how about this one? And he says, yeah, I like that, but you know, maybe I don't really need you to do all the cables and stuff. And I said, if we're doing this pattern, you're getting the cables because that's the fun part for me. And he was like, okay, that's fine. So we agreed. This was the pattern and he wanted it in a similar color to the original yarn that was used. This is a Hudson and West Co. pattern and used their yarn for the original. I'm not sure if that yarn is even being made anymore, but I remember it being quite expensive. And also now that we're in Canada, it's like I'm not paying for something to come over the border. So I ordered the Gilead by De Rerum Natura, which I have been wanting to use for years and just never have. It's one of those things that, you know, wasn't carried by any of my local yarn stores, and I would see it most often when I would come up to Canada. I know you can get it in the US, but it's one of those out of sight, out of mind thing, but every time I heard of someone using it, or like my friend Mega from Skeins of Dreams uses it all the time. And so I decided, okay, I'm gonna have to order yarn for this sweater, so why not try Gilead? And they had this beautiful color. The colorway is Érable, which I believe means maple. It's a beautiful reddish orange color. Burnt orange, I would say. Reddish burnt orange. And it's a lovely yarn to work with. It is going to look very good on him, I think. I really like this yarn. It is quite elastic, and I would also say it's quite soft. I think this would be next to skin soft even if a person was very sensitive. It's beautiful. I can definitely see that I will be working with this yarn again. And here are my sleeves, Frank's sleeves. So you can see I'm knitting them 2 at a time. The sweater is knit flat, in pieces, and seamed. So that will be exciting. You can really get a sense of the beautiful textured cables here. They look complicated, but they are not, I promise. I would say this is actually a very deceptively easy pattern. You have things like a little 1/1 twisted cable that adds a lot of dimension but is very easy to do. And then there's really only 2 cable rows. One is just this very dramatic, like 6/6 cable. And the combination of, the normal cable, the 6/6 cable, and these various 1/1 cables makes it look very complicated, but it really is not to do. You're only dealing with the 2 cable rows and the repeat, and then the rest is just knitting, as the stitches appear. So it's very enjoyable and very beautiful. This is another one that I will probably have a separate project diary on, so I'll be able to provide lots more detail in that video, but I will keep you up to date on where I am as I go along and when that video might come out. So again, that is the Olympia by Cheryl Toy. The last thing I have for you today is just a fun little stitching project that I started yesterday. When I visited Japan in winter 2023, I bought a couple of Sashiko kits and I started one of them. So here it is. The kit comes with everything you need to do it. So the needle, the Sashiko thread, and the printed fabric. So if I get up close, you can see that there is a flower design printed on the fabric. And I suspect that this will wash out when I actually wash this finished thing. But all of the instructions are in Japanese. And so I used my phone with Google Translate, like the photo version of Google Translate, to read the instructions, and it totally worked. Like, they've really improved the Google Translate function for Japanese like crafting stuff. So it used to give a whole lot of really funny sounding translations when I would try to use it to read a Japanese pattern, but at least for this little stitching kit, it was very good. I was easily able to tell where I was supposed to start stitching and that type of thing. And actually here also is the back. So you can see I'm not an expert. I am just having fun with this kit. So I am actually doing a little vlog about what it's like to open this kit and not really have any background knowledge of how to do this. Like, I've messed around with some Sashiko techniques to do some visible mending and patching and stuff like that, but I would not say that I know anything really. And so the vlog will be like the experience of what do you do if you want to get one of these kits but you don't read or understand Japanese, and like what's the experience like. So it should be a short little thing, but this is just like last night. I started it last night and is super addicting. It just creates this little sampler cloth that you can use for whatever. I'm not sure what I will use it for because I am feeling very precious about it right now. Might just be something that I keep on the table to look at, but we'll see. So that is all that I have for you today. The dog is getting a little antsy and needs to go out. And so I'm very glad that I came back and recorded. I have been having a really hard time getting in front of the camera. It's one of those hard things. Like, I kept thinking about it and thinking about all the stuff I wanted to share, and then it seemed very overwhelming and I would put it off. And at any rate, I'm very glad to be here. I hope that you enjoyed this. I hope that you'll come back, and I'm sorry I was gone for so long, but thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.